Welcome back to the Boomerang podcast. Today I have a very special guest. He's from InPower.com. And today we have Cal Washington. Cal, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you.
I'm honored to be here. Any friend of Mickey's is a friend of mine. So
that's right. We know each other through Mickey Klon. And I mean, it seems like my guests that come on my show, there are people that have had the justice system weaponized against them.
Yeah.
You know,
definitely. I mean, I went through that. That's why I'm here. I mean, I went through something horrific and then realized what my country was. I'm in Canada, but realized what my country was and what the courts were. And yeah, it wasn't what I was told growing up, whatever that was, or however I got that information wasn't correct. So
yeah, Canada's really lost its way. I mean, so is the United States. But I mean, what I see going on in Canada is just outrageous. I mean, those truckers and that whole situation, closing people's bank accounts. I mean, it shows you who these people are. I mean, these people they're scumbags. I mean, let's just say it, right? That's what they are. And
they really tip their hand. When you start freezing people's bank accounts just because they gave to something, like they can give to whatever they want to. Other than, something criminal, but even that's just a gift. It doesn't mean you're participating, right? So, yeah, that really, it scared a lot of people, but they really tip their hand as to what they are and what lengths they'll go to. So,
people should be able to give their money to whoever they want, except for maybe terrorists. But I guess the Canadian government does that for you. So. Check that box.
True enough. The amount of money going into these so-called wars that doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Come on, like what's happening there, right?
But it's not the governments, man. The people are great. Canadians are just like Americans. It's not, that's how this whole, you understand better than anybody. It's not the people of these different countries. It's their governments. My government doesn't represent me as an American citizen. Generally where I go, I'm fairly liked. I'm not, not everybody likes me, but you get the idea. Mickey had said that anybody that wants training, she does Bonds for the Win.
Yeah.
She said anybody that wants training should go to somebody like you, should go to you. Tell us
training. Yeah, I don't know. That's a pretty broad statement, but I have an expertise in certain things, definitely, because I've learned the hard way. I got the hard knocks, and then I got a lot of success from it too. So that was the main thing. I got out of the situation I was in with court, which is very difficult to do. And then I saw a lot of top people running, and that's what opened my eyes. Okay, there's something going on, and it has to do with money, and you people are definitely afraid of it. So I just kept learning more about that and doing more of it and getting the same kind of results. So, yeah.
It's interesting because it sounds like from the little bit I've watched of you so far, I'm kind of learning with my audience here. You found some loopholes in the system. You found something about tacit agreements and things of that nature.
I wouldn't call them loopholes. I found how their system worked. So I started using their system against them. And the reason why it worked is because they turned us into merchants with the birth certificate thing. So everything that they kind of set up and they were hoping we'd never catch on to was now, I was able to use against them, and there's nothing they could do about it because it was their stuff. So it's not so much loopholes, it's more I discovered some things that they were hiding and used them to my advantage.
Is that what's going on here in the United States? Is the same kind of concept?
Absolutely. It's worldwide.
Worldwide. We're traded as bonds. Is that the idea?
Yeah. Everybody was, because they were going to take the money off gold, they had to come up with a way to make it balanced or make it right, I guess, in front of God, if you want to put it that way. And so this whole trust idea, I think it's a fraud in actuality, but it's technically allowing us to have access to money if they're going to turn us into merchants. They just didn't tell us how it worked. That's
you called money a negotiable instrument.
Yeah.
So things like checks, drafts, I guess money orders, right? Things of that nature. And paper represents gold and silver.
Well, it did. And the main one that they leave off the list is bill of exchange. And nobody knows what that is.
Right.
But it's very prominent in certain circles, and especially going back into the Middle Ages with the merchant class. They were doing these bills of exchange, and they were representing gold. They were payable, but over time, and especially as things expanded and things got further away, if you're in Italy and you're buying something in North America with a bill of exchange, the chances of that bill of exchange coming back to Italy to get paid becomes very slim.
Right.
And I think they either purposely, I think they may have caught on to this, but they definitely purposely started to take advantage of that situation. And they were able to get a lot of so-called paper money out there into circulation. And we all, the peons all just, oh, it's good as gold. As long as it was working, nobody cared, right? So that's the thing. And then they just expanded that, around the turn of the last century, got these central banks going, and banking in general just expanded that whole idea of the merchant class into something that is now what we're dealing with.
Right. I collect these. This is a 1928 gold certificate from the United States, right? You
Yep.
can see
that's payable.
So is this technically payable in gold?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
In Canada, for sure. I haven't looked, but anything prior to, in Canada, anything that was actually printed before there's a date in 1935, even if they weren't out in circulation, but they already were printed, those are all still payable today in gold.
Because what happened here was they phased, right? They took us off the gold. They made us turn our gold in for whatever it was, $25 an ounce, $35 an ounce in 1933. Right. So one of the first things I like, just from the collector aspect, is somebody had to hold on to this during that time, right? Until now. So I have the whole series of the 1928. But do you think that, well, first off, if I went to a grocery store today, this would only be worth $20.
Exactly.
Right. But in terms of the deal, I would think that it's a deal that the Federal Reserve made with the Treasury, that these could still be cashed in somehow, some way. I mean, how would that work? What would that look like?
They had to, because they were all payable in gold up till that point. See, when you go back to the Middle Ages, you can really see what's going on, because there was a class of people. You got to understand this. You couldn't just become a merchant. You were born a merchant. You were born into a certain family. So it was a caste system, and only they could write these notes. And everybody went, okay, that's a rich guy. Yeah, it's good as gold, the piece of paper or parchment or whatever it was. And when you can see it for what it is, when it's happening on a smaller scale, then you can scale it up, and it doesn't change. So all that stuff was payable in gold. They had to make sure they if somebody did come with these notes back to them, that they paid them. Otherwise, your name was mud. Like,
right.
So there was a risk always there. They couldn't put out much more than they could actually pay. But I think they started to cheat because they weren't really coming back. And then they went, okay, well, if they're not coming back, let's just push this. All the merchants together, which are now called the banking families, but centuries ago they were called merchant families, and now they're called the banking families. So they just took that whole idea of writing credit notes to get stuff to a whole other level. That's really all that's happened. It's still the same thing, though.
Yeah, because the way our money worked was, prior to 1933, even a Federal Reserve note, right, just our bill that we have today, it would say it was convertible to gold.
Yeah.
And then after 1933, it said at the top, convertible to lawful money.
Yeah, it was legal tender at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you think that there could come a time where I could cash in this bill for actual gold?
Now.
How would somebody go? Not that I'm interested in doing, I like the collector aspect, but how would somebody go?
Probably at the Treasury. That I know in Canada, notes that are, it says right in the Canada Bank Act or whatever, one of the acts anyway, any notes from 1935 back are still payable today. Like, you can still go and redeem them.
Because the reason I'm asking this is, first off, I'm a gold dealer by day, right? So I'm actually in a gold shop. I work for Midas Gold Group. I do the Boomerang podcast, kind of just have interesting conversations with interesting people like you, right? I like to get insights. And I always kind of thought, I own this in a 10, a 20, a 50, and 100. And a 1 ounce gold American Eagle has a $50 denomination on it. Whereas the old coins, right, the old St. Gaudens US, large gold denomination was $20. So I guess my question is that could this be a viable way to buy gold today in terms of buying the certificate, these old certificates?
That represents gold. It really, I don't know how much gold, because I don't know what the dollar was pegged at that time.
Right.
But that's literally a representation. It's a gold certificate, put it that way. It represents gold at any point in time. So you can pass it to somebody, they can get the gold because it's a bearer note. So they just took that gold off of the notes in 1933, and now it's print money, and nobody, you can't redeem anything. It's all fake.
Yeah, because I'm just curious, because it's like, okay, I could buy the $100 bill in this series for $1,200, maybe, if it's in decent condition. So the $100 bill would equate to 2 1 ounce gold coins, which would be valued at $5,000. So would I be buying $5,000 of gold for $1,200 by buying it through? This is a representative money, right? You have representative money system, which is bills. They represent the money it's backing. Then you have commodity money, which is the commodity, right? Silver or today's copper. It's in the means of exchange. Yeah. And then you have fiat money, which is money backed by nothing. So I'm wondering, okay, if I come in through the representative money system to buy my gold, is that a good way to get the commodity at a later date or at an immediate date?
Well, I think if you hold that, you're going to get the same amount of weight in gold.
Right.
Its price is based on market, whatever, however you understand that better than I do. That's all a pile of bunk as well, right? So I think a dollar was a certain weight in gold, and that's just how it always transacted. So that would probably still be the same. Whatever it was, whatever the weight you got for $20, that's what I imagine they have to redeem it at that.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. So you could speculate if you can get that one of those certificates for less in fiat dollars, and then the weight in gold. Yeah.
You had talked about money's the driver of corruption. What do you see there? I mean, you mentioned the pedophile corruption, the 5G towers, all kinds of stuff. That's what you go after.
Any corruption in the world is money based.
Right.
You can say there's sexual coercion as well, and corruption, but that usually has money attached to it as well.
Of course.
Yeah. So everything that happens that is bad in the world, money is involved. And I'm not saying money is bad, but money is involved in the money system. So that tells you something. That's the common denominator. If we want to get rid of all the bad things in the world, or most of them, we have to deal with the money. It's this fiat money, and certain families are in control of it all. That is the problem. That is the main problem we have here on Earth. And it's always been that way. And we need to deal with it as it is, and stop petitioning and trying to go through courts, because the courts are all corrupted by money. So you got to deal with the money. And that's what I found when I was going through court. As soon as I started dealing in money and liability, that's when everything changed, and the judges didn't want to participate, and running out of the room, and all kinds of stuff. And I went, oh, okay, here's what's really driving this thing. And now I'm playing the game at the same level, and with the same rules, etc.
So what is the Empower movement about? Give us some background on that. Tell us.
Well, it's based on my experience in court. I got out. I got free of the whole thing where I'm just left alone completely. I don't file taxes. I don't do nothing applies to me, and they don't even try to apply it. And so I was just living my life. And then my friend Josh did a movie on the smart meters, which I helped. I didn't really help him, but I was involved with it. And but he was showing the movie, but there was no solution. And he was around. He met me around the time when the government owed me $300 million and all that, and it was, you know, in the papers and on TV. And so he said, "Is there something you can do?" And I looked at what they were doing, and I said, "Okay, are they hanging door hangers on your doors?" I said, "Yeah." And they're putting notices in your hydro bill. I said, "Yeah." They're using commercial means. That's all notices. That's all common law. That's all commercial. So they're getting your agreement because they're putting a notice up and you are not responding. So I said, "Yeah, we can deal with this." So I took the document that had caused the most trouble for them and modified it into a smart meter issue. And then we started seeing, you know, those people jumping out, mayor of Seattle, and two mayors of Seattle, and the councilors and all. So we saw the same things that I saw. They were running from this. And then one thing just led to another. Now we're doing 4 agendas and we're worldwide. I didn't plan any of this.
What did you sign up for?
I just kind of went along with it, and and one thing led to another. So it's not my brainchild. I didn't wake up one day and go, "Yeah, let's shut down the world monetary system with using notices of liability." It just wasn't. It's not my thing, right?
Do you think what you've learned and what you've been able to figure out through your experience, do you think that that's what can save Canada? That's what can save?
It's what can save the world.
Save the world.
Yeah, this is a world system. The merchants were worldwide. And if you were considered a merchant, you were considered special. Your word was good. All your instruments were good. They would take it, that everybody would take them at face value. These were the people who, just so you understand, they were very educated people. These were not your run-of-the-mill people. They spoke many languages. They understood all kinds of currencies. They understood value of things. They understood quality. They set up a lot of they built a lot of the universities around the world, the ancient ones. They did a lot of the patron of the arts. They set up all kinds of museums, opera houses. They built all that stuff. The schools, like, they were influential. Now they kind of run the world because they got control of the governments through lending to them. You know, they got rid of once they got control of the money system, that was it. So that's who we're dealing with, and it's been like that for quite some time. Yeah, so it's literally worldwide. They operate way above the idea of countries. They don't care about countries.
It's probably where the term, the full faith and confidence of the government, right? That's probably where it comes from. It's probably those are the merchants, right? They're the people that have the A+. You know, no one can doubt them. They're you know, they can walk on water.
They're the ones lending at this point, but as you know, they're not lending anything. They're just printing money out of nothing. But it's still based on these old bills of exchange, really, and promissory notes, which are money. And we just don't see it that way. They've tried to disguise that, or like really downplay it and get it out of our psyche, so that even people that go to law school don't understand law merchant and all that. They never even heard of it.
Right. Yeah. You were talking about lawyers in court that you brought certain points up to them and they said, "I never learned that in law school." And you said, "Hey, that's your problem, not mine."
Exactly. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, which we hear all the time, right?
Right. So what do you see happening with the money system? I mean, you know, you had a guy named Donald Trump step into office in 2016. I mean, arguably, I don't know if you would agree, but I've heard he's still commander in chief.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen all those theories. I don't know. Like, the Bible talks about, like, Yeshua gave us hints, you know, towards the end. Number one, he said, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the end." So that gives you the hint, like, go back, look, see what was going on then and what the solution was then. And then another thing he said, there will be wars and rumors of wars. And he said, "Fret not. It has to be this way." So there's a lot of rumors out there, but you can't really put your finger on anything because, you know, I'm looking at this. I'm like, yeah, sounds good, but I'm not sure if it's happening or not. Like, and I'm hopeful that it is, but I don't really know. There's no real hard proof. It's all circumstantial.
Did you ever follow the Q stuff?
A little bit.
What are your thoughts on it? I'm a believer. I looked at the posts. I saw when that stuff came out. I think it is totally legit. That's where I'm coming from. I'd love to hear where you're.
Yeah, well, again, it's all circumstantial. It's all, if you knew what you were doing, you could put this on. And even some of the words that they use, to me, like the greatest show on earth, it's like they're telling you something.
Right.
Like, why are you saying that? Sit back, get your popcorn. We're all in this together. And when I hear people saying we got this and we got that, like just my peer, like people that I know, I'm like, you're not doing anything. You're watching videos.
Yeah.
So there's something not correct here. Like you think you're part of something, but you're not.
Not.
So that's put there on purpose. Like that's a tactic that somebody's doing. So why are you doing that if you're legit? Like what's going on?
Yeah,
so I just kind of step back from it. And I'm hopeful that all this is true, but I'm not holding my breath. I'm like, we need to do this. The way I look at it, what we're doing, I know the people that are involved. I know myself. Not that I'm perfect, but if what we're doing lines up with what they're doing, then I know it was always good. But if it doesn't, it doesn't matter. They will fall like the rest of them. So that's how I kind of look at it.
Yeah, I never really. I was talking with somebody about that the other day. They enjoy the show. It's like it gets people to sit back and do nothing. Whereas like you need more, Mickey Klons of the world, where she goes and raises hell and gets mask mandates removed in schools, right? Goes after them $21 million affidavits.
Exactly. That's who I call the sons of God from Romans 8. The creature is earnestly waiting for the manifestation of the sons of God. And when I see them, I know, okay, there's one right there. Donald Trump, not sure. There's too many weird things around it. And I'm wondering, this is why Yeshua said, don't fret. We have to do it this way. So maybe it's supposed to be that way, but I just okay, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and hopefully it dovetails with what they claim to be doing.
Yeah, I hope so, because I see people like, I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona, and we had, Carrie Lake, Abe Hamadeh, Mark Fincham. They all lost their elections, but there's data that's readily available to the public. This is Michelle Swinnick. I don't know if you know Swinnick, but this is data readily available that if you put that in front of a judge, you'd have automatically a new election. But for some reason, Carrie Lake and these guys, they're not doing it. So it just tells me that either, okay, these guys are frauds, or they're waiting for some reinforcements at a future date. And it's like, I'm always going to err on the side of caution. So I want to say, okay, maybe they're frauds. But at the same time, I've had Mark Fincham sat right here in this seat. He doesn't seem like a fraud to me. He seems like he's active and not giving up.
Right. Yeah. So so I do watch it, and I've seen some of the things that Donald Trump put through, because one thing I learned in my court thing was how to read acts and how they manipulate the English language. I hated English in high school, but I became pretty good at it, grammar and everything. So I can dissect their and I can see why they put words in certain spots, and I can see the deception. So when I saw a lot of Donald Trump's things going through, I'm seeing these tactics still happening, but they're happening in a positive way, and I'm like, well, this is really strange,
right?
Because they're putting that word there, but that could mean this, and everybody thinks it means that, but it's actually something. From my perspective, this is a positive thing, and I saw it a lot. So that was different, because normally I see it in a very negative, controlling
context.
Yeah, and deceptive to an advantage against the people, basically. Right. And
right. Yeah, and you're starting to see a change where maybe it's for the people.
Well, some of the stuff Donald Trump went through, especially with the because a lot of people are saying, well, no, he did the vax thing and he did the let's get the 5G through. But I went and read them.
What'd you find?
I saw there was one word, the security of 5G, and I went, why would you use that word? Because everybody thought, yeah, he's just fast tracking 5G, and I'm going, that's not what it says. Security in the right context means secure the perimeter. Like if you were in a police or military thing, you secure something, that means you take over and completely dominate it. And so when I see that definition go in there, I'm going, hang on a second here. This gives him the right to go and take over this thing at any given point in time. And they pushed it through, and of course, they got full votes on both sides of the house and all that. And I'm like, you guys didn't read this,
wow,
or you didn't understand it, because that word is probably not the word to use. Security.
Interesting, very interesting. He got one passed on all of them.
Yeah, and that wasn't the only one. I saw this quite a bit with Trump's things. I didn't study it, but I because people complain, look, Trump is doing this, and I never go with the headlines. I never go with anything like that. I go and read the actual act or the whatever it is, and then dissect the words. Get all the definitions of a word. Don't assume that you understand it, and put all the definitions in the sentence, and then you'll go, oh, that says something different now. But if I change that word to there and this word to there, whoa, now I got something. A lot of that goes on. And so you have to understand that they manipulate English. And when you really start to study it, English is a contrived language. It's not even, it's not one of the ancient languages. And we're basically reading backwards and speaking backwards.
Right.
Like it gets kind of deep. And English is the predominant language in Earth, and it's meant to be contrived.
Right. So we're going to probably have to relearn our language too when this is all said and done.
Yes, or come to some kind of agreements on definitions, not having words like phonetics. There's a lot of phonetics is used as well. Like you're saying you're reading something, but what's coming out of your mouth has a different word even, and or sounds like current can be currency,
like right.
Yeah,
a bank, right?
Exactly. So these types of phonetic things are part of the whole English.
I've heard a little bit about that, and I found that very interesting, and it's nice talking to somebody that can identify it a little bit better for me. What are your thoughts on Pierre Poilievre?
Next one.
Just another clown.
Yep. I just marvel at this, because I saw Trudeau coming in because Harper was doing the gotta get this guy out. Oh, here comes Trudeau. I'm like, oh, come on. You guys can't see this coming?
Right.
Like, oh, and so he's this exact same thing.
Do you think Trudeau's the son of Castro?
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
Is there hard evidence for that you found?
Well, I'm old enough. I remember some of the improprieties with his mother, with Castro and the Rolling Stones, and all. Like there was a bunch of stuff that went on a long time ago. It's probably been downplayed, but I remember it as a young dude growing up. The skiing accident, there's a bunch of stuff that happened that I'm aware of. It happened. Like I was old enough to understand, or remember it. Put it that way.
I mean, you look at Theresa May and the lady from Germany. What's her name? Former president of Germany. Why can't I think of her name?
Merkel,
right?
Yeah.
Angela Merkel. Her and Theresa May. They look like spitting images of Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
I've actually heard Obama. I've heard Obama is either the grandson or the great grandson of Hitler.
It's all very like when you go way back, like go back to the time of Noah. It's all about this interbreeding.
Right.
When you really get down into this, that's what's going on. There's a whole other DNA strand here that they're aware of themselves, but we're not aware of them. And that interbreeding has been going on for a very long time. And they are the merchant families and the royals, and it's this DNA genetic thing. So yeah, there's a lot that's been going on for
Centuries. Yeah.
since the seventh from Adam. And
Right.
Adam, and in my opinion, Adam's not the first Homo sapien type being here.
Do you get into like the whole idea of like what Carrie Cassidy talks about? Do you know Carrie Cassidy?
No.
Okay. She gets into like the Anunnaki and
Yeah.
pretty far out stuff. But do you think there's any validity in some of that?
Well,
talk?
I don't call them Anunnaki. I go with the biblical version of that, because the Bible seems to be a contract, and therefore it has to have some truth in it. I'm not saying anything about it, but the fact that they swear on it tells me, and they don't want to, tells me that there's something in there that's probably where I'm going to find my bargain on this contract. And so that I stick with that. But the stories are kind of similar. They're always, they're the same, but they try and change the characters and etc. But anyway, there was some beings who came from the sky. However you look at that, the Bible calls them angels, and they bred with daughters of Adam. And so that's that DNA. Like it's like a horse and a donkey, and you end up with a mule. We ended up with a thing like that, which was called Nephilim in the Bible.
Nephilim, right?
Yeah, and so that has continued to this day, and that's the wheat and the tares that Yeshua was talking about. They can't tell us straight up, but there's a lot of hints in the Bible of what's going on. It's definitely a DNA, a war of species. We kind of look the same, but it's the wheat and tares. That another parable was the wheat and the tares. They look the same until harvest time. So we're coming to a point where we're going to see a lot more the differences, and it's going to start to become clear who's what and who's who in the zoo here.
It's almost like the movie Men in Black. Like that's a very extreme example of it.
Yeah, Men in Black is kind of giving you the heads up on that. Yeah,
right. Because they like to kind of tell you what they're up to in a very vague way. That's how these people I've learned operate.
Yeah, Matrix is another one. That's a big one. Yeah, so it's all these stories are in the Bible, and especially in the Book of Enoch. If you read the Book of Enoch, that gets pretty explicit about what happened, how many did it, and all that stuff.
That's the one with the giants, right?
Yep. Well, the giants are the Nephilim. So they were giants, and they were half animal, half. All kinds of weird deformities came from that, and a lot of the Greek mythology is not mythology. These are real beings.
Reality.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I know, it's just mind blowing. So all this stuff happened, but they got the genetics down. Like they were obviously the ones that bred in were of a higher intelligence race, and they're still here, and that's where a lot of technology and etc. comes from. They have knowledge that wasn't supposed to be put here at that time, or even at this time. So they are they've got the breeding down where it's hard to tell the difference between one and the other.
So what do we need to do to move forward? I mean, is it just educating people? Is it getting somebody like you in a classroom, somebody like Mickey in a classroom, and educating people on, okay, here's your rights, here's the real legal system we're supposed to operate in? Is that the solution?
It is. We have to deal with it as it is. That's one thing I learned. Don't try and force it into something that it's not, that it's supposed to be. That doesn't work. You have to deal with it as it is, because we've agreed to all this, and there's that creates a whole spiritual level, karmic level, however you look at the world. So they are operating now in a fraud, but we've agreed to it. So we have to kind of undo it from that perspective, rather than going, we're the Republic of the United States, and all that's still here. It's still intact, but you're not going to conform this thing to that at this point.
Right.
We've got to get rid of it. Like, it's not fixable. So
Package
the
up the
only way to
US.
get rid of it is to deal with it as it is on its own terms.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. What are your thoughts on the 2024 election here in the States? I mean, do you think we're going to have an election? If I personally don't, I don't think. I always like to ask people what their thoughts are. What do you?
I think you're going to have an election. I think Trump's going to win this time too.
Yeah, but if he does, all these people go to prison.
Yeah. That's why there's a lot of frantic behavior right now.
A lot of frantic behavior. I mean, I see
Yeah.
these people freaking out in Congress.
Yeah.
This one lady just went nuts.
Yeah. We're seeing this too with our notice of liability worldwide. People stepping down, all kinds of governments. We got even a royal Queen of Denmark stepped down, and her mantra was, "I will never step down." The people of Denmark are like, "What? Isn't it you that says you will never step down? Like, you say it all the time, and all of a sudden, yeah, I got to go." Gave 2 weeks notice.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. What are your thoughts on John F. Kennedy Jr. being alive?
It's possible. Anything's possible. You know, that whole plane crash, it seemed a little funny at the time even. And so it's definitely possible.
I think he'll be a great unifier. I'm a big believer that he's still alive, and I've done the research, and I know a lot of my audience, they feel the same way. I think he'll be a great unifier so that people can unify, get on the same page, and then be open to somebody like yourself or somebody like Mickey with the right information, sit down, taking classes, getting education on this stuff, because that's what it really takes. I mean, people just are clueless. I was clueless up until like 2 months ago.
Wow.
You know, I'm starting to learn this stuff only recently.
Well, you've got a head start because you understand gold, and you understand how that all works. So you have some tools to work with. You just need some information, and then you'll go, "Oh, now I see what's going on." Yeah, so you're not that far behind. You're probably ahead in some ways. So it's just you have to have the context. That's all. And so, yeah, you know, I don't know that the political system is fixable, and I don't know that we even need it anymore.
Right.
So, you know, rallying behind JFK, depending on what he's going to do, like if he's going to run for president, I'm not that into it because it's still perpetuating the same problem. Yeah. But if he's going to do like, let's abandon this and let's start again and let's do this. Yeah.
That's what his dad was doing in the 60s. Was his dad was going to pass down to the states how to break free from the, you know, maritime law, whatever it is out here, breaking free from that system and then bringing the states independent of the federal government.
Yeah, well, they've always been that. He was just going to sort of make them aware of it and
make them aware of it, right?
Yeah, and
then also taking, you know, making our dollar convertible to physical silver, right?
He was running. He ran some. I think he had the 10s and 5s and 10s out, and started on the 20s, and that was the end.
Right, that was it.
So the two things he did was start to pull out of Vietnam, and print money, and that, you know, that
over
there. Yeah,
over.
Yeah.
What do you think people? I mean, if you were to give a message to people, I mean, what would you tell them to do in order to maybe get more active, get more involved in, you know, learning this information? What can they do?
Well, they can join Empower. You know, it sounds like I'm tooting my own horn here, but but that, you know, we do have a plan. It's not for everybody, and we know that. But if we get enough people doing this, we can literally change the world because we can transfer all the wealth out of the current system based on the rules of the system. They can't do anything about it. It's a default of default, a checkmate of checkmates. And so it's a beautiful thing, and we're worldwide, so we can literally. I think we're up to just over $6 billion right now in bills of exchange, with maybe 300-400 people doing it.
Wow.
Yeah, so you get that into 200,000 people or 2 million people, the amount of wealth that we will create on in bills of exchange, which are money according to all their rules and everything. Like they can't undo it because their system's built on it. That's the beauty of it. That's what, once you understand the core mechanism of how they've amassed all this wealth, they can't say you can't do that because their whole system is built on it. It's the foundation. So these bills of exchange we can create and give it back in a crypto form, and so that people can transact with it.
And then I guess it also comes down to kind of what Mickey does, which is cashing in on your own bonds.
Well, we don't have to even cash in on the bonds, because part of that is the system is corrupt and they don't cash anything for you. Because unless you're an insider, you can have all the negotiable instruments you want. Unless a banker is going to say, yes, I'll put this through and turn it into fiat for you, you're stuck with the things. But what has happened is in the past 20 years, cryptos have come up because they want to move to a digital. It's their idea. So now we're going to go, okay, now you put this into our psyche and everybody understands. Right. To a certain degree, there's some kind of value there. They don't specifically understand it, but they understand, like, oh yeah, there's something about it. Now we can flip the whole world, and they're building it for us. So it's just a matter of taking these bills, these bills of exchange that everybody's holding. You probably won't be able to see it, but
you disappeared into
my thing, yeah,
into your house.
Maybe if I put it near my face. No,
can't see it. But with this,
I don't know how to get rid of that background. I got it on there.
Would this also kind of represent the same thing?
That is actual gold. That represents gold. So that is the best way to describe that as a gold certificate. That's payable in gold, and this is still fiat. It's still based on the fiat, but we do have it in the contract that we can switch to gold or silver or any valuable currency or anything really. And then we have it written on every bill too, so we can switch it at any time. So they can't even try and dodge it.
Right. But you think the whole crypto, Bitcoin and all this, it's a scam?
I don't think it's a scam. I think it's what they want to move to. And but they've opened that door. Because 30 years ago, if you tried to run your own money in the world, that was counterfeiting. Now it's like, yeah, it's crypto. Like,
right?
Oh, wait, come on.
I mean, my biggest complaint with Bitcoin is that what's to say somebody can't create Bitcoin 2 and Bitcoin 3 and Bitcoin 4?
Well, this is the thing. It's not based on anything. We're basing ours on bills of exchange. So the bills of exchange do exist. And we're coming up with ways of verifying them and auditing them and all that, so that people feel secure. Number one, they have to understand what a bill of exchange is, which is a big leap, and then we have to make sure that everybody understands these exist somewhere. Because right now the system centralizes it; they're all at banks or in some kind of financial institution, and whether they are or not, we believe they are. So it's centralized. But I think we are at the stage now where we can decentralize and people can trust it, because we can come up with systems to verify things. And even this whole representative voting thing, that was because not everybody in the United States could go to Washington to vote. It was just not practical. So you had representatives go to Washington to vote for you. We don't need that anymore with the technology. We don't need that. We can all vote right here on our computer or on our phone.
That's what Chris Jersky, I don't know if you know Chris Jersky, but that's what he said to me was, you could just as easily, I think it was Chris, but you could just as easily use this technology that they use to rig elections for the greater good of elections too.
Yeah. Yeah. If you voted on a blockchain, like it's over.
It's over. It's great. Yeah. I do think there's validity in blockchain, and I'm not knocking people who buy Bitcoin, because I happen to own some myself. Right. But I just have it as diversification. But that's one of the things that's interesting. It's like the way you talk about it's like what people believe, and I can so relate to that, because it's like I sit here and I sell gold and silver to people, and like I have to explain to them what's really going on in the banking system, and a lot of people, it's fighting cognitive dissonance. Like if you want to know, like my main job, it's literally fighting cognitive dissonance in people. What do you think's happening in the banking system? Do you think that these banks are going under at a certain point?
Yeah. And that's because of the inherent problem with the notes. They're not redeemable. Everything is debt backing debt backing debt backing debt backing debt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they have to reset it every once in a while. Otherwise, a 3-year-old will figure out the scam. If you just keep this going, you will end up with more debt than available money to pay it.
Right. Right.
A 3-year-old will go, hang on a second here. How does this work? So they have to reset it before we go, oh, the light bulbs go off and we go, hey, there's a scam. There's an inherent scam here, right?
Total scam.
Total. Yeah.
So you're a believer. Do you like gold and silver? That's an asset that you would recommend people go into?
Yep. Absolutely. I don't know much because I'm not a wealthy person, but I carry a little bit of silver, and one of my best friends is a silver and gold dealer. Yeah. I
would love to send you a piece, a more artistic piece, but nevertheless an American piece of actually no. Yeah, we'll send you an American piece. I have just the coin for you. Cal.
All right. I've got one St. George slaying the dragon that my buddy you won't be able to see it. Silver.
I'm actually familiar with it.
Yeah, and then I've got this 2-ounce pirate one. It's got a skull on one side and a pirate ship on the other.
Yep. Yeah, I kind of preach more U.S. sovereigns, even Canadian sovereigns. Have you ever heard of 107?
I don't think so, no.
You might hear his name one of these days, but he seems to be a guy who's on the inside with Trump, and I've interviewed him, and he said that he's got a team together who are under non-disclosure agreements, and they're trying to figure out a new monetary system. And I know he goes to Mar-a-Lago. I know he's been invited by Trump and has lunch with Don Jr. So, I mean, I have to think the guy's legit, but he said, stick to U.S. sovereigns or Canadian, maples, things like that. That tends to be a good bet for us. Because I think we're going to be great trading partners in the future. The U.S. and Canada, I think we're going to be, basically one country. I mean, I think we can
get rid of countries altogether. They don't really belong here. It's the first point of separation. And we think they belong here, but they don't. And you can see it with the animals. They just fly across borders and walk across borders, and they're not even aware. So look at nature. It tells you a lot.
Yeah.
We're the only species, living thing here that pays to live here. Like nothing else pays. Like why? Who said? When?
Interesting. Where can people find you, Cal?
Empowermovement.org.
.org.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have a membership, like a PMA. It's a church actually, protected by the U.S. Constitution. So Congress can make no law respecting an establishment of religion. So we're completely autonomous and protected by the U.S. Constitution. So it's a PMA on steroids. We're worldwide. We're doing all of our bills of exchange in U.S. dollars, so it all falls under U.S. jurisdiction. The U.S. is the bastion to fight this thing from in the world, and I think the forefathers knew it. They built this thing, built the United States, because they knew this time was coming. In the future, there's going to have to be a spot where you can mount a defense and an offense from.
1776 worldwide.
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I appreciate you coming.
We're doing that, and I can see the beauty of it, because as soon as everything goes into U.S. dollars, it falls under U.S. jurisdiction, and all the countries are all registered at the U.S. SEC, and they're all the countries are all corporations, so they're all under U.S. jurisdiction. So all we have to do is do all our contracts in U.S. dollars, and
we got it.
Yep.
So can I go on your website, Empower? It's empowermovement.org.
Yeah.
And I can go on there. Is there a subscription that I can pay for?
Yep. It's $150 a year or $15 a month. And the value you get inside there is just not even close.
I'm going to join today as soon as we
Yeah. So the documents are there. We have a document builder, so you don't have to relieve some of that stress. We vet your respondents for you. They go into a database. Everything's emailed to you, ready to go to the notary with your witnesses, and we track all your bills. We don't hold them, so we have no legal or lawful right to them because everybody's holding their own, but we are tracking it all together. So it's completely decentralized. Nobody has control of all the bills, not even us. We know them all, but we don't hold them.
Are you a hockey fan?
Yep. Montreal Canadiens was my team as a young dude.
I was gonna say, when I saw you, I'm like, did Donald Brashear get involved in politics?
That's true. Donald Brashear's from quite a while ago, but anyway, yeah. I grew up here in the north, and hockey was the thing. And the Canucks just lost last night, so they're out of the playoffs.
I know. I was disappointed. I wanted to see them pull it off. I like JT Miller. He was a former Ranger. My New York. I'm from New York originally. My Rangers are in it, but I like that squad from the 2014 Stanley Cup run. And JT, he was always a great Ranger, so I kind of want to see them pull it off. But they'll be a good team next year and probably a couple of years to come at least.
Yeah, I mean, they really could have pulled it off this time too. I think they were the better team. Just Edmonton just wanted it more, I think, really. And they've got a couple really good players, obviously. And
David Draisaitl.
Yeah.
That's a pretty magical duo right there.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
Yeah, Connor's quite a player. He's like Bobby Orr, he can just go from end to end. And
best player in hockey for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. Great chat. I hope we can do it again. And if I can get a place where I could send some, PO box, whatever, I'd love to send you a couple coins.
Okay.
I
have a PO box. What's that?
One of them's gonna make you laugh.
Okay. Right. Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll give you a PO box you can send it to. That'd be awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, get that to Bill, and thank you so much for coming on.
All right.
Peace.